She's standing at the edge of a glass corridor, helmet off, hair like signal static, breath barely visible in the light of a dying sun. Behind her, the spacecraft hums, a soft, inertial murmur, like an animal that has stopped waiting. Ahead. Nothing. Not space. Not darkness. Nothing, in its original sense. No color, no curvature, no perspective. Just a flat, terminal absence. She doesn't blink, doesn't speak, just watches, as if what she's staring at might move, might ripple, might notice her back. NNWE. Think of the universe as expanding, swelling like lungs, stretching like time. But here, at the edge of what we can observe, there is no more motion. Just light that never reached us. Histories that dissolved before they became events. Her body is still, but her pupils twitch, mapping, scanning, failing. The mirror of her iris reflects galaxies, inverted and distant. One looks like a burn mark. Another, like a ring falling apart. Every photon around her is ancient. Every beam of light took 13 billion years to arrive, only to stop at her skin. Behind her, instruments flicker. But they don't record. Not really, they echo. What they call data is just aftermath. And here, beyond the final scattering of cosmic microwave background, even aftermaths have run out of breath. The temperature is 2.7 Kelvin, but here it feels colder. Colder because there's nothing left to cool. She raises a hand toward the nothingness, not to reach, but to acknowledge. It doesn't respond. It doesn't exist. It's not black. It's not even void. This is where the story should end, but she doesn't turn back. She leans forward, and the stars behind her, just for a moment, seem to flicker in response. As if something behind the curtain blinked. What if the universe doesn't end with what we can see? What if the true horizon is inside us, not outside? What if everything we call reality is just the echo of a gaze that never belonged to us? NSHE doesn't know yet, but she breathes. And that, for now, is the only measurable thing. When we talk about the observable universe, we rarely acknowledge what that word really means. Observable. Not real, not complete, just visible. Just what light had time to tell us. As if the universe were a performance, and everything we know is just what's made it to the stage in time for us to see. The rest, backstage. Or worse, off-script. The girl watches a recording of her own eye, playing on a loop across the ship's monitor. Frame by frame, it zooms in until the pupil becomes a well, and inside that well, stars collapse. NNTHE observable universe spans 93 billion light-years across. But not because that's how big it is, just how far the light has traveled, relative to our moving vantage point since the Big Bang. What we call the edge isn't a wall. It's a silence, a limit set by time, not matter. Everything beyond it might still exist, but its light hasn't reached us yet, might never. So we speak of a horizon, as if we're sailors. But we're not. We're castaways on a raft of photons, drifting outward, asking, what lies past where even light gives up? A human body contains about 37 trillion cells. If each one could emit a single photon per second, it would still take over 8 years for the light from your skin to travel a single light year. She touches the wall of the ship as if to test the speed of memory. The metal feels warm, not because of heat, but because it remembers her hand. In deep space, time and heat blur. Things cool, until they forget they were once alive. But her skin leaves a trace. The camera watches. The moment is already a fossil. There's a theory, not proven, not disproven, that space beyond the observable universe might look exactly the same, infinitely repeated, that there might be infinite versions of you, of me, of her, walking corridors like this, asking questions they were never meant to answer. But there's another possibility, that beyond that edge, things are not just different, but unreachable by logic. That causality itself breaks down. That the constants we hold sacred, light speed, entropy, spin, shift, collapse, reverse. NNSHE closes her eyes. Inside the dark of her eyelid, the stars feel closer. Not visually, Biologically, her breath slows. The ship stops measuring. Silence becomes a variable. There's a word physicists use: co-moving distance. The distance between 2 points in the universe, factoring out its expansion. It's a way to track separation without letting time interfere. But here, time is the interference. Time is the noise. The further we look, the older everything is, but also younger. Stars we see died before Earth formed, but their light is new. So what do we actually observe? The past? Or just the speed of forgetting? NNSHE walks down a corridor lined with panels showing different patches of sky. Some are cold, empty microwaves. Others are scarred by gamma bursts. One is just static. She stops in front of that one, stares, doesn't blink. It looks like the universe is breathing, but it's just noise. Or is it? One of the most haunting truths in cosmology is this: the universe doesn't need us to be observed. It keeps expanding. It keeps erasing its past, whether we notice or not. What if beyond the observable universe lies not another space, but another rulebook? What if what we call reality is just one configuration of possibility, a stable equation briefly balanced before falling into another? NNSHE exhales. The screen flickers. And for one frame, just one, the static organizes into a spiral. There's no explanation. Just the rhythm of anomaly. And that's when the questions begin. NNOT with discovery, but with distortion. The speed of light is a limit, but it's also a language. Every beam we observe from distant galaxies is a message, delayed, distorted, sometimes desperate. We measure these beams, map their origins, calculate their redshifts, but we forget. Redshift isn't just a number. It's a stretch, like the pull of grief through time. A star a billion years away doesn't just look distant. It feels slow. Its light moves through space like blood through water, colored, diluted, impossibly old. And the further away it is, the more space pulls on it, until some things disappear, not because they stop shining, but because they're pulled too fast to ever be seen. NNSHE lies on the floor of the observatory dome, arms spread like a constellation. A lens rotates silently above her, tracking something she'll never name. There's no screen here, just the curved ceiling, turning into a map of shadows. Her heartbeat matches the clicking of the gyroscope. 1, 2, drift. The dome doesn't show stars. It shows their trajectories, their scars, their delays. It's not astronomy. It's time travel made visible. Dark energy makes up nearly 70% of the universe, and we don't know what it is. But we know what it does. It accelerates. It pushes space apart like a slow, endless scream. The more space stretches, the faster it stretches. Like a panic you can't localize. This acceleration is why there's a limit to what we can see. Because past a certain point, the expansion of space is faster than the speed of light itself, which means light, no matter how fast, will never reach us from there. It's like trying to run on a treadmill that's growing faster than your legs can carry you. You never move. You only recede. NNSHE wakes from a dream she doesn't remember. Her hair clings to the side of her face, damp with silence. The air recycler hums like an underwater cello. A red indicator blinks in the corner. Not urgent, just rhythmic. Like a lighthouse warning no one. She touches her wrist. Pulse 61. The galaxy she was dreaming of doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe it never did. Some photons never arrive. Some messages are written only for distance. Here's a metaphor. Imagine throwing a bottle into the ocean, hoping it'll reach someone on the other side of the world. But the ocean is stretching beneath it, faster than the bottle can drift. The bottle is lost, not because it sank, but because the ocean unfolded. That's what light is, beyond the observable edge. Lost bottles in an expanding sea. Some still on the way. Some destined never to arrive. And in 2008, scientists detected something strange. Hundreds of galaxy clusters, massive systems of stars, dust, and dark matter, appeared to be moving in the same direction. Fast. Too fast. and not because of any visible gravitational pull. It was as if something beyond the observable universe was tugging on them, pulling them through space. Not metaphorically, physically. They called it dark flow, a term that sounds poetic but is a crack in everything. She floats through the corridor of data modules, rectangular, metallic, glowing from within, each one a record of a patch of sky, each one a failure to explain. Her hand brushes a unit labeled Centaurus Drift. It hums beneath her palm. The data inside whispers something simple. These galaxies shouldn't be moving that way. And yet they are. NNTHE physics behind their motion is controversial. It relies on interpreting tiny fluctuations in the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, and correlating those fluctuations with the motion of galaxy clusters using something called the kinematic Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect. The idea is this: as cosmic microwave radiation passes through moving clusters of galaxies, it gets slightly energized, shifted, tinted with motion. The shift is minuscule, but measurable, if you know where to look. NBUT, this motion, this flow, seems to move toward a region of space where there's nothing visible, nothing mappable, no known structure to explain the pull. Which raises an impossible question: can gravity reach us from beyond the observable universe? From regions we're not supposed to interact with? It's not supposed to be possible. But maybe possible is just what's convenient to say until something breaks it. NNSHE turns off the lights. The module hums louder in darkness. It's not real, of course. The sound is local. The data doesn't care. But she feels it. A vibration. Not of truth. Of contradiction. Some physicists propose that the explanation lies in the early universe, before cosmic inflation, when everything was closer, when even distant regions could influence each other. Maybe there was something dense and massive in that wider reality, something we can't see anymore because the universe expanded too fast. But its pull remains, not as a force, as a direction, an impulse, like a scar beneath the skin of space-time. Imagine being born with a bruise you can't remember getting. That's what dark flow is. Not proof of another universe, but a hint of an earlier one. Not a message. A memory. NNSHE opens the hatch to the viewing platform. No safety rail, just glass, just black. Just the feeling that something is still reaching, not toward us, but through us. NNWE are not being watched. There's a moment in deep space where motion becomes irrelevant, where velocity, distance, even direction dissolve, because the background is no longer fixed. It's slipping, accelerating, softening beneath itself, like a curtain being pulled from both ends. This is not poetry. This is cosmology. There are places, not metaphorical, but real, where galaxies are moving away from us faster than light, not because they're breaking the rules, but because space itself is carrying them. Like leaves frozen in a river that no longer exists, the edge is not a wall. It's a rate of escape. NNSHE stands in a chamber of suspended particles, glittering dust fields held in magnetic balance. Every grain represents a galaxy, a point of light. Some are lit, some have faded. But the structure they form is still moving. Even the dead stars participate. She runs her fingers through them, and they flicker. Patterns emerge, then vanish, as if the universe wants to be seen, but only for a moment. Here's the question that breaks the floor. What if we're not inside a universe, but on the edge of one? What if everything we know, everything we simulate, everything we call physics, is just a membrane floating on a deeper substrate? And that movement, that dark pull, is not an effect from beyond, but a leak, a bleed from another layer, another kind of existence, not spatial, not temporal. Something stranger. Something that doesn't fit our categories at all. There's a theory in cosmology called the multiverse. Not science fiction, not fantasy, but a mathematically derived possibility. That our universe may be one bubble in a vast foam of inflating regions. Each bubble with its own laws, its own constants. But what if two of those bubbles brushed? Not collided, just grazed. A friction event. What would that look like from here? Maybe like dark flow, like galaxies being dragged in one direction with no visible cause. Like a ripple from a neighbor we'll never meet, NNSHE moves toward the cryo chamber, not to sleep, but to remember. Inside, the air is colder. Time feels slow. The hum of the ship softens. Here, the walls are covered in images, microwave scans, quantum gravity maps, failed symmetry plots. Each one a confession. Each one a map of what doesn't make sense. And in the center, a rendering, a diagram of a false vacuum decay, a bubble of lower energy forming inside our universe, expanding at near light speed. Invisible. Irreversible. A cosmic reset. And physicists don't like to talk about it, but the equations allow it. That our universe is metastable, balanced on a knife edge. That one day, not now, not in a billion years, or maybe tomorrow, a fluctuation could trigger a collapse. The fabric of space would change its nature. Particles would stop behaving, light would stop traveling, and it would happen everywhere, instantly. No warning, no sign, just transition. Like falling through a floor that was never really solid, NNSHE places her hand on the image and the ship lights dim. Not because she touched anything, but because somewhere the data shifted. A signal arrived, a pixel twitched, and suddenly the center of the map is missing. Erased, not deleted, displaced. Like something reached through and moved it. She doesn't react, just lowers her hand and breathes. What if the universe is not expanding into space, but into possibility? What if the real movement is not outward, but inward? A collapse into deeper states, into finer and finer grains of uncertainty. Maybe what we call the edge is not a boundary, but a mirror. And what's pulling us is our own reflection. Older, denser, faster. In 2016, a set of measurements from the Planck satellite revealed something strange. A cold spot in the cosmic microwave background. A region of space significantly cooler than the rest. Some attributed it to statistical noise, others to a supervoid. But a third idea emerged, that it might be the bruise of another universe, one that touched ours before inflation drove them apart. A ghost collision, a mark that never fades. NNSHE closes her eyes. The cold spot is not on the map. It's in her breath. She feels it. A difference. A subtraction. As if something was taken before she could name it. And maybe we're not expanding into more space. Maybe we're being unwritten from the edges. Maybe the pull isn't gravity at all. Maybe it's memory, and/or regret. Something the universe never meant to hold on to. There's a quiet terror in the realization that not everything that exists can be seen, and not everything that can be seen is real. Physics was meant to comfort us with structure, with order, with laws. But the deeper we look, the more it feels like we're deciphering dreams written in languages we don't remember learning. The girl sits in front of a screen showing nothing. A perfect black. No stars, no noise, just absence calibrated to precision. And yet, she can't look away. As if her body senses something her brain refuses to process. Beyond the observable universe lies not a frontier, but a breakdown. A failure of correspondence. You can't point to something that hasn't yet existed in your light cone. So what are we pointing to when we say beyond? The concept itself is a paradox, a gesture toward that which, by definition, resists all gestures. Like trying to remember a face you never saw, but somehow miss. Cosmologists build models, inflate coordinates. But at the core of all these equations is a blind spot. A region we pretend is temporary, but might be eternal. NSHE opens a sealed drawer. Inside, fragments, a cracked visor, a preserved feather, a looped video of clouds dispersing over a desert she's never visited. Each object, a proof of something partial, a residue. She lifts the feather. It bends unnaturally in the ship's gravity field, curving toward the hull instead of down. An artifact from a region where space-time vectors shift. A relic not from beyond, but from beneath. The texture of the unknown. There is a theory known as the holographic principle. It suggests that all the information in a region of space can be described by data encoded on its boundary, like a three-dimensional image projected from a two-dimensional surface. If this is true, then everything we perceive as volume, as presence, might be a shadow, a rendering, not an illusion, but a compression. Meaning that what lies beyond may not be outside, but deeper inside. NNSHE moves to the medbay and stands before a biometric mirror. It scans her vitals: oxygenation, heartbeat, thermal output. But today, something strange appears. A faint signal, below measurable range. Anomalous heat pattern, oscillating in fractal symmetry, not harmful, not traceable, just present. As if some part of her cellular quantum is receiving input from elsewhere. She stares at the flickering display, and for a moment, she sees herself, not older, not younger, but offset, a version of her with different eyes. Looking back, if our universe is a hologram, then maybe the edge of observation isn't a boundary, but a fold in the code, a crease where information loops back. What we experience as distance might be interference, layering, two realities brushing against each other, producing noise. Or music. We always assumed silence meant emptiness. But what if silence is just the sound of two versions of reality vibrating out of sync? NNSHE exits the medbay and floats down a narrow shaft. On both sides, panels with analog gauges, needle flickers, static hums. One dial, labeled null vector differential, begins to twitch, slightly, then stills. The silence after feels heavier than the sound, like someone closing a door very slowly behind you. Another theory, that consciousness, our awareness, is entangled not just with brain chemistry, but with the large-scale structure of the universe. That the patterns of thought might echo patterns of dark matter filaments. That we're not just observers, but participants in space-time topology. Which means, the edge isn't just out there, it's in here. And the boundary we sense is the one that separates awareness from the rest. NNSHE returns to the dome. The stars have shifted. One sector, usually dim, now pulses faintly. She adjusts the view. Zooms in. What she sees isn't a galaxy. It's a gap. A subtraction with structure. Like an imprint left after something moved through, but didn't stay. The absence has geometry. That geometry repeats. A tessellation of absence. Not random, not decorative. Intentional.NNTHE screen records. But the system doesn't recognize the pattern, flags it as insufficient data. She presses override, keeps watching. The pattern loops, fades, returns. And then, for just a breath, it seems to sync with her own pulse. She places her palm on the console. The shape expands. What if the edge of the universe isn't a limit, but a threshold? What if every observer carries a version of it within them? A horizon shaped by the parameters of their own perception. Then maybe she's not observing the edge at all. Maybe she is the edge, and every breath she takes redraws the border. Every memory she forgets expands it. Every dream she dreams pulls something else closer. NNNOT because she's special. NBUT because the universe needed someone to fold through. There's a theory in quantum mechanics called decoherence. It describes the moment when a quantum system loses its entanglement with other possibilities and becomes something definite. Observable, fixed, real. It's not the collapse of the wave function. It's the erosion of superposition. A fading of maybes into one, irreversible now. What we call reality is built on this process. Not a choice, but a forgetting. A narrowing of what could be into what is. She walks through a hallway filled with sound. Not music, data sonified. Pulses from radio telescopes, translated into tones. Some soft as breath. Others sharp like cracks in glass. Her footsteps sync with the rhythm. Like she's walking through someone else's memory. What if the observable universe is not defined by what light can reach us, but by what we have already chosen to remember? What if each observer is not looking outward into the cosmos, but inward through the residue of decisions made by consciousness across time? Maybe the edge of the universe isn't expanding at all. Maybe it's receding from us. A response to the narrowing of possibility, NNSHE, sits alone, surrounded by still holograms of herself. Each projection frozen in a slightly different pose. One looks up. Another weeps. A third stares straight at her, mouth slightly open, as if about to say the same thing she's thinking. But none of them move. They're not errors, they're echoes. Probabilities rendered into static. The machine that made them is offline. It hasn't worked in weeks. And yet, the figures remain. NNTHE Andromeda Galaxy is 2.5 million light-years away. That means, when we look at it, We see it as it was long before Homo sapiens walked upright, before language, before memory. But in 4 billion years, it will collide with our own. Two galaxies, gravitationally bound, slowly falling into each other through emptiness. This isn't metaphor, it's choreography. A cosmic embrace unfolding on a timescale too vast for us to feel. But already underway, NNSHE opens a message, a transmission loop from Earth. Old, fractured, stretched by distance. A child's voice, repeating the same question, "Are you still there?" The signal degrades with each cycle. The words blur. The emotion doesn't. She lets it play. Once, twice. Then she records her own voice over it. Not an answer. Just a breath. An exhale. Not to soothe, but to join. And NWE often ask where the edge of the universe is, but rarely ask when, because the farther you look, the further back in time you see. So the edge is not just distance, it's chronology, a fringe of origin. And beyond that, nothing? Or just unobserved becoming? Some cosmologists believe that the observable universe is only a tiny patch in an infinite mosaic of realities. That our local region, with its galaxies, its dark energy, its strange acceleration, is one zone among countless others. Maybe some have no matter, no stars. Maybe others collapsed before they ever began, or maybe, just maybe, there are others that have observers like us, asking, waiting, projecting their breath across expanding membranes, hoping someone else hears. NNSHE turns to the glass again. The ship no longer feels like motion. It feels like delay, as if she's not moving through space, but being stretched across it. Her reflection flickers. Behind it, not her face, but a field of static. And inside that static, a shape forms. A spiral, a mirror, a door. N. Another theory, more poetic than provable, that time and space are emergent, that what we experience as forward motion is just the increase of entropy, the buildup of information, and that beyond the observable universe, where entropy cannot increase, there is no time at all, just potential, waiting for a pattern, a thought, a pulse. And then SHE places her hand against the glass. The reflection doesn't match. Her own hand stays still. The mirrored one trembles. She doesn't pull back. There is a phrase in Sanskrit, neti neti. It means, not this, not that, a way of describing the ineffable by peeling away what it isn't. Maybe this is what cosmology has become. Not a science of what is, but a sculpting of the negative space. Not this, not that, not here, not yet. And an SHE walks into the archive room. Shelves of obsolete data. Early models of the universe. Flat ones, spherical ones. Models with edges, others with folds. She pulls one at random. A digital cube. It shows the observable universe as a flickering lattice of red and blue nodes. But as she watches, it begins to glitch. Nodes rearranging themselves, spiraling outward, then inward, then vanishing. A prompt appears. Update available. She doesn't press it, just watches. The simulation continues without her input. It doesn't need belief to run, only attention. NNWE like to think of the universe as something we explore. But maybe it's something we participate in, generate, collapse. Not passively, but with every choice we make. Every observation is a fold, every refusal to look. An expansion, NNSHE, returns to the center of the ship. There's no destination anymore. Only motion, only breath, only the presence of a question that refuses to dissolve. What if the observable universe isn't a window? What if it's a veil? And what lies beyond is not greater, but closer. Something folded beneath our skin, something ancient, unfinished, waiting to be seen. Some endings arrive without climax, not with a bang or a fade to black, but with a pause, a stillness so dense it folds time inward. The girl stands in the observatory again. Around her, the stars are motionless, not because they've stopped, but because her frame of reference is melted. She's no longer watching the universe. She's within the watch. Inside the instrument. Inside the edge. The data has stopped updating, but the silence has shape. Like a question left mid-sentence, there's a phenomenon in general relativity, gravitational lensing. When a massive object bends light from behind it, creating arcs, halos, even multiple versions of the same thing, we see galaxies duplicated by invisible curves in spacetime. Illusions, yes, but also truths about what we cannot see, yet still affects what we do. Maybe what lies beyond the observable universe is not another region, but another lens. Not more stars, but more curves. More bends in what we thought was straight. NNSHE opens the last transmission from Earth. It's just one image. A photograph of a lake, taken at night. Moonlight over water. Nothing cosmic. Nothing strange. But when she looks closer, she sees it. In the reflection, the moon is missing. Not dimmed. Not distorted. Just gone. As if the surface remembered the sky wrong. She doesn't analyze it, doesn't report it, just closes her eyes. Holds the image in her chest like a breath too fragile to exhale. NNTHE. Observable universe is not a boundary in space. It's a measure of patience, of how long light has tried to reach us. But light travels with limitation. Gravity doesn't. Entanglement doesn't. There are whispers that quantum information might already be here, already within. Not from stars, but from elsewhere, that what we think of as before or beyond is already folded inside our cells. A backward echo. A recursion of now NNSHE begins to disconnect the monitors. Not from frustration, from completion. There's nothing left to extract, only what remains unspoken. The girl walks to the central hatch. It opens to an empty expanse. No stars. Just radiant dark. She doesn't leave, just watches. And as she stands there, something happens. Not movement, but recognition. A shift in the pattern of absence. And final hypothesis. And what if the universe is not expanding into space, but into awareness? What if what lies beyond the observable universe is not further away, but waiting to be activated? And a future already here. NBUT unread. NNSHE breathes in. The silence vibrates. NSHE breathes out. And somewhere, the veil flickers. And a single photon escapes the ship. It spins, curves, bends, and passes the edge. Fails to decay. NNNOT because it was seen. NBUT because someone was willing to feel it. What if beyond the observable universe lies not distance, but intention? What if the cosmos is unfinished, because we are? What if space was never meant to be crossed, but remembered? What if time is the residue, and consciousness is what remains? What if you were always at the edge, and never once looked away,